We got voicemails.
We do.
You go to anchor.fm/the CU podcast. You go, leave us a voicemail. You don't have to, you don't have to do shtick if you don't want to, but here's the shtick deal. Here's the deal. You can try shtick, but I will be extremely critical of your shtick if you try shtick. That's the Pat and Ian agreement. We can allow it, but we'll be very critical. It'll be like you're going to be performing for us in a nightclub, and we're going to be judging you on the shtick. All right, here's the first one.
Hey, Pat and Ian, this is Ian from Rochester, New York.
Oh.
I'm curious about how important audio quality is for you in terms of gaming. Can you play with the internal speakers on a TV or that crappy little speaker that's on a handheld? Or do you need to have a nice pair of headphones or a nice stereo system to really enjoy the game?
I think it really comes down to like when was the game designed? What was it designed for? I don't need to have like, a 7.1 surround sound version of Contra playing for me to enjoy the game.
Right, if I'm playing like a Nintendo or a PC Engine game, I'm fine with the TV speakers because that's what there was at the time. Even with modern games, I for someone who's so into music and collects records like I do, having the banging sound setup has never been my thing. My brother's crazy into that. He builds speakers from scratch, and I mean, he's built rave sound systems and home audio sound systems. That's his thing. But I mean, I've got a cheap, shitty soundbar that was a hand-me-down, and that's about as fancy as we get here in terms of audio. I do think you lose more if you're not playing your modern AAA games with a nice sound system because they're scored more like movies. You get something out of the bass and all that. But I've never been that person.
I think Ian's fine with the Game Boy speaker for Game Boy games. I think that's like part of the experience.
My favorite systems were never audio powerhouses.
There you go.
So
Turbo Express had decent sound, didn't it? Decent, but I gotta fire up the have I played the one behind me? Have I played the LT? I think I did. I think I did when I first got it.
To answer that.
What's that?
I said you would have to answer that for me.
I miss you, Carlson. He hasn't been around the scene selling his imports at conventions this past year. Next one.
Him.
What's that?
I should text him.
Hi, this is the Bavarian guy again.
Hey.
I was wondering what is the best way to preserve hardware that is lost nowadays, like mainboards or other things that cannot be replaced that easily. For the 64, there is a motherboard called Reloaded MK2, and I think it's a good way for the purists, but for all the other guys, I think it's better to use an FPGA version. What do you think? Thanks.
Well, we're a long way away from an FPGA and 64 core, but so the question was how to preserve the hardware. Well, I think
FPGA is I think going forward that is going to be the future. I think we're seeing the beginnings of FPGA, and I think that there's lots of room for that technology to improve, and for people to get even more adept at programming it. And I don't know what we'll see in the future, but I think that is the future.
The future. Otherwise, someone will have to still recreate parts for some of these systems, like get the like the lenses, the lasers stuff for like an old Sega Saturn made, and replacing the parts, stuff like that.
Hey, Pat and Ian, this is Austin from New Jersey. I have a comment and a question, mainly for Pat. First off, the NES guidebook, I love it, but you broke my heart giving Castlevania 3 only 4.5 stars. Really, bro?
Well, I didn't review that one, but you complain about a 4.5-star review. I mean, that's excellent. But okay.
I think I reviewed that one. I think.
Did you? How dare you, Ian? Give it not a sterling 5-star review.
Anyway,
great game. It's also super difficult.
My question is, how do you think these will happen in order? Will the Mets win the World Series? We hear anything about Metroid Prime 4, or Tommy Tallarico admits that he ripped people off with the Amico?
Tommy Tallarico is a classic narcissist. He'll never admit wrongdoing or the fact that he did something wrong. So that's never going to happen unless he goes through a lot of therapy. I'm not saying this to be unkind, but he has to go through a lot of therapy and sort of find himself in order to change that. The Mets are pretty good this year. The Mets are in first place in the East. They just got Jacob deGrom back, first pitching today. Knock on wood, he stays healthy. The Mets could have a shot this year. I'm not saying they're going to win World Series. What was the third option? Oh, Metroid Prime 4. Nintendo will probably do another direct by end of this year. I think that game is probably still 2 years away. Being that they had to restart it, I don't think we're seeing Metroid Prime next year.
It might be on the Switch Plus, Switch 2 at this point.
Well, no, they'll have it on this console, but I mean, like, I don't know, unless they've done a lot of work the past couple of years since they restarted it. I think we're probably at least, I'd say, end of next year for Metroid Prime 4. Then again, what's a big holiday game for Nintendo? They usually have like the one big holiday release.
Zelda.
Oh, Zelda? That's okay. Then
well, and they said that's going to be like early next year, but I think that was supposed to be their big holiday game.
Okay, so then you don't need Metroid Prime 4 until at least end of next year. If we get it.
Hey, Patty, and this is Cindy from Tacoma, Washington. I recently picked up the adapter for my Retron 5 that allows me to play Master System games. I'm curious as what your opinion is on Sega Master System games that would be easy to get into and won't break the bank. We'll say games that are $20 or less. Thanks, and have a nice day.
Not a lot of Master System games that are $20 or less anymore, and those will be the ones that are less interesting.
Vigilante should be reasonably priced, and it's a fun game. I like it. I do. It's a fun game.
Oh, get the turbo version. There you go.
I have the turbo version, but he's not asking about turbo. He's asking about.
Hey, on Master System, you don't get the great voice actors. Come on. Okay, that's
true.
You're saving your girlfriend Madonna. Madonna is your girlfriend in that game. Anyway, under $20 is even like the quote unquote common ones like Shinobi and Afterburner, an Outrun under $20 on a Master System anymore. Like that's probably it.
I don't know. Transbot is kind of fun for.
Is it for a card game?
Yeah, for a card game. I don't think Double Dragon or Rampage are like crazy expensive yet.
Outrun's under $20. Get Outrun. Even though there's no like a lot of sound effects, you get the awesome music. Well, as awesome as going to be in the Master System. Battle Outrun, that's the one that's hard to find. I always forget about that one. All right,
you can get Rampage Loose for $20.
Loose?
Yeah,
that's the one I had. Wow, it's that much money. That's quote unquote a more common Master System game. What is something like Shinobi going for then? That's got to be under $20. That's the most common thing. Shinobi's
Double Dragon Loose, even complete. Box system, no manual, $15. So you can still get Double Dragon for relatively inexpensively. And
Shinobi is going to be $25. You can probably find it at a store and show it for under $20 for that. Oh my God, Master System stuff has exploded in price.
I think Shinobi is missing levels too.
Alex Kidd Shinobi World's $190 our best offer. Holy crap, that was expensive when that was $60 when I was collecting.
Yeah.
What's other? And then this, I don't know much about the sports games. I'm sure they're average. I don't think Master System was known for their great sports games, but they did have Joe Montana later on. Check out how's their ice hockey game? How's their pro wrestling game? I never played it. I don't know, but those are cheap. Usually those sports games are pretty cheap, under $20 for those.
Hey, Pat and Ian, Mike from Chicago
Mike
here. Recently, the Switch had a sale on a number of games, so I bought the Sega Ages version of Phantasy Star. I'm curious what your experience has been with Phantasy Star 1 through 4. How would you guys rate each game that you've played? Thanks a bunch.
How would you rate them? I haven't played them.
It's an RPG series that I haven't really touched. I was really into Phantasy Star Online, but that's a whole different thing. I have played the first one, specifically the Sega Ages release on the Switch, and it's fucking fantastic. Like the quality of life features, the mapping, all of that. Probably the best way to play the game. I did try to play it on Master System once, and I did try to play it on a Game Boy Advance once. Switch is the time that it really stuck. I think the theming and the characters and the world is cool, but I haven't played 2 through 4, and the time period where I could play a lot of RPGs is long gone. So I don't know that I'll ever really get to experience them.
Hi, Pat. Hi, Ian. Paul from Detroit. I was wondering if you ever thought about having a loot box as part of a Patreon tier. Could have enamel pins, stickers, a bag of chips. I mean, it was a lot of fun in a dream I just had where we all met at a library to open them. Keep up the good work. Thank you, guys.
Okay, that was fine until the dream thing. That got weird. I don't think you're allowed to do like a sort of raffle thing for rewards or benefits On Patreon, like we do have the enamel pin, which Ian didn't mention, I don't think, the enamel pin tier, where I'll mail you an enamel pin, but that's like a specific item that you get. I did we used to do the when I did my 3 DVD Kickstarters back like now, like wow, like 8 years ago, 9 years ago. I did have a tier where I'd give you a mystery box. So you got the DVD, then you got like a mystery box of like 10 or so games for a certain price from my extras. So that was fine. But I don't think you can do that on Patreon. I don't think you're allowed to do that. Or you throw some chips in from Ian, like some Ian candy.
I think it would be fun, but I think we would run out of stuff pretty quick. I have no idea like how people like Dinosaur Dracula does it. He puts them out like monthly, and he's always got cool stuff in there. I think everyone gets the same thing though, so maybe that's how he can do that.
That's more like a loot crate thing. That's sort of
yeah,
like, okay.
Yeah, and I think that's what this guy was more. I think.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I think that's what he was meaning. Not so much
okay.
a loot box, a loot crate, because other people do that.
They do that. Okay, it has to be the same thing.
Sourcing the stuff for it is got to be pretty difficult. I think someone like Dinosaur Dracula is he's naturally looking for this stuff anyway because that's his hobby and that's what he focuses on. So he probably comes across these things that he can buy in bulk to put in these crates.
And that's offered on the person's Patreon?
I don't know if that's his Patreon or not, but I know he does them.
Hey, Pat and Ian. It's Jason from the Nerd Cave Retro Show. I sent a voice message a couple of weeks ago about the VHS tapes, and then a week later is when the news for the VHS stuff broke. And now I'm thinking, well, hell, what can I collect that's not going to turn into a big shit show? What do you guys think? Love the show. Keep doing what you're doing.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that hasn't turned into a quote-unquote shit show. It's just that the more popular... Has Pogs ever turned into a shit show? I don't know. I'm sure people are grading Pogs at some point.
Anything that gets popular enough is going to get some unsavory characters in there, and it's not going to... it could change it from a purely... enjoyable pursuit into one that money gets into. I think there's not a lot you can do to stop that. As far as like hobbies that aren't like that now, I don't know. And if I did, I don't know that I would mention them because I don't know that I'd want people rushing to, suddenly try to monetize it.
I will die in the hill that VHS tape collecting is ever going to take off because we don't have fond memories watching VHS tapes in general. We liked watching the movies, but the VHS experience was trash.
You know what? CD collecting right now, relatively inexpensive. I've got a couple friends who are loving it at the moment and picking up all sorts of great albums for 99 cents, $1.50.
There you go. Cheaper than rip them to MP3s like the old days. You don't have to like go on the iTunes store and get them.
Right, and get all the stuff that's not on your various streaming services.
Frank's been ahead of that curve forever then, because Frank buys that stuff that like I had to like import a couple he couldn't find. I want this one. It wasn't available in the US. I had to import it, for him. There's stuff like that. I'll do a few more here.
And this is Kevin from Michigan, not one of those Kevins.
Oh.
But I just wanted to say that with the Amico and Tommy stuff winding down, I'm kind of hoping Tony sticks around. I think we need the Guido Sarducci of gaming, and that seems like our guy right there. Thanks, guys.
We'll see if Tony checks in. We'll see at some point.
So it's probably safe to say that Ian's had at least a few negative experiences working as a game store employee.
A few.
But I'm curious about if either of you have ever had any particularly negative experiences while on the other side of the counter as game store customers. Thanks.
I'm trying to remember if I had something that was really out of line when buying something at a game store. In general, I would say no. I'm trying to think if there was ever a dispute or like maybe here's the thing. Usually in a game store, if the stuff isn't priced, you ask for the price and they'll look it up or whatever. There was a record store nearby to us that the person got into video games when they realized they're popular. And it was a nice guy and would price stuff out. And it wasn't really, even if I thought something was overpriced, it wasn't ever going to get heat. I said, it's a little bit too much for me. Yeah, it's like, I think you can do a little better. And, you joke about it. You come to an agreement, but it was never something like with vitriol or anything like that. I don't know. I don't think it's ever, I guess I know there's probably some stores out there where there's bad luck, but I don't think I've ever encountered them that was bad.
I walked into a video game store here in San Diego once, and the owner was behind the counter wearing a bathrobe and eating SpaghettiOs out of a can. And when I asked to see a game, he pulled the game off the counter, off the back wall, and turned it around and held it up to me and wouldn't let me hold the game.
Talking about Game Rave, Ian?
I was going to drop that at the end. The name of this video game store is Game Rave, and I don't recommend anyone ever go there.
They always sell at Comic-Con, and they're always stupid expensive.
They're insanely overpriced at all times.
So when I first moved to San Diego, I checked out all the local stores, which was literally like 3. There was one up in Claremont that's no longer there. They went up, I think, like 10 years ago. I remember that one. It was like, I think it was a chain. I checked out Luna Video Games, one location at the time that I checked out. I checked out both. And then I went to Game Rave. And I'll never forget it as long as I live. This is 2008. It was like $80 on Super Dodgeball. That game in 2008 was worth no more. I'm being generous, $15 at most back then, maybe 20 back then. It was.
I think we charged 20 for it, and it was one of those ones where it was so popular it had like a popularity tax. But if you want it online, you could probably get it for 15.
It was one of those things where I just looked at it like, wow, this is how this is going to be, huh? We're just going to like overprice everything just to do it. It might have been 60. Even so, that's still insane. It's like triple the value of what you should ask for that.
I definitely saw it for 80 in there once.
Okay, so maybe it was 80 because
that was like the one time I was in there. I remember that being in the case, and it was
yes.
like 80.
Like, were they thinking it was another rare game that was like
no, they weren't.
It's never been worth $80. Only in the box has it been worth $80. All right, we'll do one more here.
Hey, Pat. Hey, Ian. Chris Taliaferro here, calling in from beautiful Maple Shade, New Jersey. And this isn't a question. It's me letting you guys know about a missed opportunity that you had. So, you guys were talking about the San Diego Zoo recently, and then Pat goes, "Oh, is this going to be a zoo podcast?" And at no point did either one of you say the Sea Zoo podcast. It was right there, guys.
Chris, I guess we're not as clever as you. What can I say? You know, we sometimes we're not perfect. The pun didn't come to our heads right away. That's why we have you, Chris, in Maple Shade, New Jersey, to catch these gems that fall through the cracks.
Yes, I feel the shame. I feel shamed.
Okay, there's just some more from Chris here.
Whoa, it's the Sea Zoo podcast. Night Zoo's cool. Whoa, it's the Sea Zoo podcast. I really like Night Zoo.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome.
No. I'm not thanking. You don't ever thank him. Good voice, Chris. You have a very solid singing voice. Not going to lie.
I would say it takes a lot of guts to, sing into a microphone and send it into a podcast.
Very Pat-esque voice there you have. You have to work on your jingle writing. The Night Zoo thing, that was not. You have to work on the writing on that. But, well, okay. Well, that's a one way to end this segment for the week. The CU Zoo, was it Sea Zoocast? I forget already.
Sea Zoo podcast.
Sea Zoo podcast. I already forget it, Chris. Maybe you should fill in for me next week with Ian. All right.